Councilmember Bennett.
Well, I want to thank everybody for coming and speaking, and I just wanted to give you some of my thoughts. First of all, as most of you know, over the last 43 years, I was involved here and raised well over $55 million to build a lot of projects and buildings in the YMCA, and all of them started with the concept. Every one of them started with the concept, and we had to flesh out the concept and then do the fundraising, put the plan together, develop a pro forma budget to see if it's going to be successful. And after we had done all that, we decided whether we would be moving forward or not. And that's a normal process that goes forward, and it's a responsible process that goes forward. I think we all would agree in the room that this probably could have started better. But, you know, I'm willing to put that behind us and say, how do we need to move this forward from this point forward and not dwell on the past? I'm going to use an analogy that took place in it, and believe it or not, it relates to a partnership and collaboration, like we can ding the bell again, between the Memorial Task Force and the mayor. The mayor did not kill the process for moving forward on Memorial. What the mayor did was say, here are about 12 critical issues that for him to support it need to be addressed, and they were important issues. We addressed every one of those critical issues as we move forward. My point of this is, it's a better, as we move forward, I like what Matt had to say, is that we need to have our focus on what are the questions that need to be answered for this to be successful. If they can't be answered, I can live with that. I think they can. But I think that's our focus, moving in a positive role to identify the critical issues. One critical issue here is the critical issue of TIF. We need to address that. I'm fine with that. Many of you probably don't realize this, but when Jan Martin was providing leadership to the Memorial Task Force when we ended up with leasing it, which has been hugely successful. We were given legal counsel that this does not have to go to a vote of the people, that council, because it's a lease and not a sale, council can just address that. Council chose, no, we're not going to do that. We're going to take it to a vote of the people because it's an asset of the vote of the people. I guess I'm at the same point on this. If we could do the Sports and Event Center, which I think would be a huge success, and if you would combine all of the C4C projects, to me that's probably as exciting as the Air Force Academy coming, one of the greatest things that's happened in the city of Colorado Springs. But as we move forward, as we look at what we're doing, if this is going to consume and take away from the general fund, or I think the people have to vote on that. I'm fine with that. But we haven't gotten there yet. And I think it's time for us to be moving forward to identifying the questions and answering the questions needed for this to become successful. I was honored, I guess it's about 8 months ago, some of you helped me. I was honored to chair a nominating committee to identify the RTA board, which we brought forward to the mayor and he finalized. It's, I've referred to this analogy also, it's a rock star group. They're people that I trust, they're people that I know will ask the difficult questions. And if this as this moves forward, they're going to be protecting the city and be protecting the citizens of this city. And what they will do and what needs to happen is they will make sure it's economically and responsibly successful. I think there's a lot of work that needs to be happening right now. I think it's time for us to move forward on doing some and getting the planning started. I think 3 of the projects have already we've moved past that. It's time for us to say, okay, what are the tough questions? Like the mayor did for us with the Memorial Task Force. What are the tough questions that need to be asked? And let's start working on them. And let's make this a success, because I think that, as I said before, this could be one of the most exciting things to happen in the city of Colorado Springs. And I would, for one, like to be a part of that.
Okay. Other comments from council? Oh, Terry, go ahead. I'm just sorry. Go ahead. Councilmember, well, okay.
Merry Christmas, everybody, and thank
Merry
you
Christmas.
for continuing to say Merry Christmas. I appreciate that.
You got a Christmas tie on.
Yeah, and
Good for you.
the jacket a little bit too. But you notice the Santa Claus has glasses on, and you all need the glasses. I'm Terry Storm. I'm the CEO of the Pikes Peak Association of Realtors, and although I'm here supporting Harry Salzman and everything he's presented to you all, and he does represent our entire board of directors who have talked about these issues at length, that's not why I'm here. I'm here as a long-suffering participant in the last Charter Review Commission. It was one of the most difficult things that I had to deal with in my life in the last 2 years, and ended up with no good. But I was certainly outspoken then, so I'll be outspoken now. Please, please do not put any of this in the charter. You have the power to deal with it without a charter amendment, so please don't do that.
Okay, thank you, Terry. All right, Councilmember Knight.
Well, two things. A little correction for Matt. We actually started off with a prayer, and for this Christian at least, that's the true spirit of Christmas, and hopefully I still have that after this evening. And so, then I want to address what Laura said. There are multiple versions in there, and there's really only 3, but unfortunately due to just the confusion that multiple versions lead to, we've had a little in-house hiccup, and so what was attributed to me is not the version that I'm helped craft or have brought forward either back in the November meeting and the December meeting. So the version that was in the read-ahead is not one I support. Obviously not one the Gazette or editorial page supports either, but there are, since they had the wrong version, I got to cut them a little slack this time. But so I ask that the new one is out there. The best way to tell that it's mine is if you look at section B, there's only 3 subparagraphs. And the history of that was we started off with what Councilmember Miller had crafted and sat down with Keith King and myself and Councilmember Miller's wife. He was flying and earning the money for to feed his family. And we actually cut that back, and I thought we had made a good compromise. It does allow, it puts no restrictions on infrastructure improvements, and I agree that downtown infrastructure does need to be improved if we're going to grow it, regardless how we grow it, be it a sports event stadium or anything else. You know, we had to do that for North Nevada, and that has led to UVC, as well as enabling Chancellor Shockley to do a lot of expansions there. It puts no restrictions on a parking garage. It puts no restrictions on, let me see, infrastructure, parking garage, the pedestrian bridge. It's only on the building itself. It looks at that. Yes, it does say a sports and event center, regardless whether it's under C4C banner or not. But the biggest thing it does do is it does say any tax, any city tax, funding or financing using any city funding. And the reason that's important for me versus what Ms. Newman said was just on general funds or just on sales and use taxes, that we are covering too many other large pots of money that don't need voter approval. Two points on that one. Number one, let's take just the parking enterprise, for example. The parking enterprise is a parking enterprise, being redundant, sorry, but it is an enterprise of the city, and therefore under issue 300, can only be used for doing parking improvements, either in downtown or in Old Colorado City where we have the parking meters. So building a parking garage is a very logical use of that funds. But does council really have a vote on it? No, it'll come to us as a budget, as part of the budget enterprise. It says we're going to do this and we're going to spend X amount of money this year, and we voted up and down. As you saw earlier in the discussions, there is legal disagreement as to what power council has to do that. So when you say we have a chance to vote on a parking enterprise, do we really is the question, but then I go back, the ordinance that I'm proposing does not include the parking enterprise, so that's really a moot point, but there are other things in there. The real reason that I am pushing that so much is, as I stated before, this has changed from a discussion about the value of the C4C projects and what they can or will not do for the city to a matter of trust with the citizens. Ms. Newman stated just over a year ago, the group headed up to go brief the OEDIT board or the EDC, whatever they were. Just under a year ago, when we were notified that we qualified for that, the mayor has said that any use of went and made a video that said any use of taxpayer dollars would require, he would take it to the vote of the citizens. Now, in the 12 months since then, there has been different proposals that came out that would not require a vote of the citizens. And they are asking that. That's what they are asking for, is show us the facts and let us see that if you're going to encumber any city tax funds for 20 years, they want to know the facts, they want to see the data, and they want to have be the voice. And that's where it is for me, is how, not whether the stadium has value or not. I personally believe it has the potential, the sports center has the potential to bring in new visitors. Whether it'll break even or not is the $20 million question, or $64 million, whatever you want to say. But the real value is, one saying, how do we proceed from here? The first step is to regain the trust of the people. And the way we regain that trust is to let them know that they will have a vote if any of their taxpayer dollars are going to be used, and not just some specific taxpayer dollars that then only heightens their distrust. Well, what loophole are you trying to create? Thank you.
Anybody else who wants to come and testify, please come forward. Welcome, Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas. President King, Pro Tem Bennett, Council, thank you for the opportunity to come up and talk a few minutes. I'm Tom Nepple, Chair of the Regional Business Alliance, and as you've heard and undoubtedly know, we are in support of City for Champions. We had a vote with our board, 100% unanimous in support of the project. At the same time, we did discuss the need for financial overview, and we did offer that. We're not to the point yet where that's a realistic issue because we don't have anything in front of us. But we feel very strongly that these projects need to fund themselves. They need to make sense financially, and we also support a vote of the people. So I think we're in tune with a lot of what's being said. And if there has to be a charter amendment, we would be certainly in favor of Mr. King's amendment. However, we would encourage you to find a different process to deal with that. The other thing I want to touch on a little bit here is some of the challenges we have in the Business Alliance. Our job is to grow the economy, create jobs. In order to do that, we need a lot of things working pretty well. One of those is culture. We hear this a lot from companies that come from out of town. They want to know about the workforce. They want to know about the community. they want to know about the culture. And the culture, simply stated, is the way we do things around here. If you take an outsider's perspective and look at our culture on any given day, depending on what's in the paper, it can be very positive or very negative. And I would encourage you to consider the spirit of collaboration that is offered out here, and I will offer the resources right now of the Business Alliance to assist any way we can in helping you, the council, the county, the mayor, get together as we did previously this year, as you know, and see if we can work some of these differences out in private instead of airing them in public. It doesn't help us in the least, and I would appreciate it if you guys would consider that. So thank you very much for your time.
Thank you, Tom. Anybody else? Welcome, Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas to you all. Wanted to come up here today and echo what a lot of my colleagues' comments have been about. It's time to roll up our sleeves and get things done around here. In that same Business Alliance board meeting, I was the guy who stood up and said, but we must make sure this thing is financially viable. We absolutely must. And Merv, you were there. And so they put me in charge of the committee to oversee it. Never talk out of turn. I've done developments for many, many years. We are very early on in this project. I've reviewed the materials that have been done to date, and quite frankly, I would never even think of taking them to a bank because they're so preliminary. We're going to have to roll up our sleeves, and we have 18 to 24 months of hard planning, hard architectural work, feasibility work, infrastructure planning. We don't even have the utilities hookups designed yet. So to kill this project now, I think is done for very specific reasons, which I disagree with. I think we should draw a roadmap out. Let's find some road off-ramps where we can come to different points along this planning process and say, are we at a no-go or are we at a go decision? But we are far too early on in this program. Oklahoma City took 5 years to get their project out of the ground, and how far are we into it? I was on that bus, and I was proud to be part of that bus that went up to Denver in the snow during that blizzard. There were a lot of people who spoke very passionately about this project. So I believe that this should go to a vote if we use taxpayers' money. I think we should roll up our sleeves and get this project done, but make sure it's done with absolute financial viability. And I'd like anyone who's against those principles to please stand behind me. Thank you. Have a Merry Christmas.
Thank you. Okay, anybody else? I would just like to make a couple comments. Councilmember Knight.
Reference the person that just volunteered to lead the finance committee or whatever it is from the RBA. I think you're right on there. And I don't know of any of the amendments that don't do that. I mean, this is not an up-down vote on the value of it. This is exactly what you said. There is no timetable in there other than what's been put forth by Denver that you have to start on it by all the projects by 5 years. So, as I said before, this thing has merit. I'm interested in the same answers you are. I'm asking the same questions, same answers. So I think on that part, we're on the right sheet. And then the question is, once it comes there, as you said, if there's taxpayers' dollars to it, then let's restore what we're trying to do right now is just restore the trust of the citizens that know that this will be, they will have a voice in it. And I think if we do it right, we can convince them. If the numbers do prove it and we do it right, we should be able to convince them of the merit of funding that.
May I respond?
Sure.
Please.
I completely agree. And I think that's where we need to do the hard work behind the scenes. And quite frankly, I would be the first person to kill this before it goes to the vote of the people if we can't find the right financing structure and right development costs. So I don't think we should even bring it to the people if it's not a good project. We've got to prove it out. But this is a very, very complicated process. And when you're talking about infrastructure of this complexity, it doesn't need any more obstacles than it already has. It has plenty, trust me. So I think those road bumps are already there. Those off-ramps just need to be agreed upon. But we don't need to continually hamstring ourselves. We see that at the state level where we have amendment after amendment after amendment to the Constitution, and they are creating an absolute mess. So let's not do that to us, not on our watch in our town. Let's give ourselves as much freedom as we can and then bring it to the vote of the people. But we don't need to put additional roadblocks in our way.
Okay, thank you. Councilmember Pico.
I want to make a couple points. First, my key issue on this whole issue is ensuring that before the taxpayer funds are expended, any taxpayer funds are expended, that we follow what we have in Tabor, and that there is a vote of the people that approves a project before it goes forward. That doesn't have to be on any particular time schedule. I'm not too concerned about whether it's this year, next year, following year. When it's ready, it needs to go. But that affirmation, I think, needs to be there. And as my colleague has just said, that trust has to be in there. And I think that's kind of what people are looking for. I'm not opposed to City for Champions at all. I think it's a great project. I think it has a lot of potential. I'm not opposed to a stadium. I have reservations about spending taxpayer funds on a stadium. That's where I draw the line. Taxpayer funding, I think we have a lot of priorities in the city that need those funds first, roads and so forth. That's my issue, and that's my concern, and that's what I'm looking for, the best solution that ensures we have that check in place. Thank you.
Okay. I would just like to say a few words. When I served in the legislature, the Regional Tourism Act came before the legislature, and I voted in favor of the bill. I voted in favor of the bill mainly for one reason. It encompassed only the state sales tax and increment financing. It did not, there's nothing in the legislation at all about local financing and use of local money for the Regional Tourism Act. It does not exist in that act. And I've been a proponent of the fact that Colorado Springs is many times shortchanged in the way the legislature divides up, especially money like the School Finance Act, and how we are always shortchanged with the PPR, the per pupil revenue that we get in Colorado Springs compared to what is in Denver. So it's made sense to me if we had any way to capture some of the money that we were always giving to the metropolitan area of Denver, that if we did it, then it was state sales tax that was coming back to the community. That made sense to me, and I think it still makes sense to me. I think it's something that we can bring back to our community and we can spend on developing the community of Colorado Springs. So when I looked at this, I've not been opposed to the process of City for Champions. What I have been concerned about is the way that we go about doing the financing and the way that we go about operating it as a business. And having come here and started now a defunct business, but it was Waterbed Palace in 1977, I learned right away that the amount of debt service that you have, the lease that you have, and the capitalization that you have of your business makes a big difference. And I've kind of rode the wave, so to speak, of the waterbed industry, and it was good for me, and it's come and gone. And so businesses don't necessarily last forever, and the concept behind a business doesn't always stay there. But if you capitalize it right, if you make it run like a business, and if you do it as a business, you can have success with it. So my issue has been, if we can capitalize this entity without using local tax dollars, then that is really what the intent of the legislation was. If we are going to come and ask for local tax dollars, then I think we have a duty and obligation to go to the people and talk to them about the use of those local tax dollars and what they will be used for and how they will impact the project. So I think there are several things that we should do as a community as we go forward with this. I think it's an issue that we should look at. How do we get the best interest rate possible? And how do we get the most capitalization to that? How do we run the authority to make sure that it's successful? Those are key questions that we can address, and we can address them successfully. I think based upon the discussions that we've had, there's different values up here as to what role government plays in economic development. And I supported, when Intel came and Rocky Scott was here, I supported the business incentive agreements to try and bring Intel to this community. It didn't last as long as I wanted it to, but it was, I think, a success to some degree. And I also supported the commercial aeronautical zone at the airport. I think we are starting to see some changes of bringing businesses to Colorado Springs through the efforts that we are doing there. I think if done right, this has the same opportunity for success, but it has to be done right, and it has to be done in such a way that we do it in a business-like manner and we run it like a business, and we try to accomplish that. So I worked on this issue. I openly tried to work with my council members to try and find a solution for this. I have been concerned about the process. I signed a letter with the Commissioner Dennis Heisey, the chair of the El Paso County Commissioners, that I thought we needed more collaboration on this particular issue. And I also did the signing of a statement with other council members that we needed to take this to a vote of the people and how we involve the city funding. I also reached out to the business community and made sure that I had an opportunity to have a discussion with them, because I thought if we could do it right, we could come together. And I wrote a little article called "Turning Our Swords into Plowshares" to try and find a way to find common ground in this community to move issues forward. And I think we can do that still with this issue. And so I am hopeful, and I am encouraged that we can make this go forward. I did sit down with Councilmember Knight and Councilmember Miller's wife, and I worked on an issue to try and bring that particular ordinance forward to a better place. And I also, in working with the business community, saw the benefit of having the property tax increment financing remain viable in the urban renewal area, and that it go forward and it would be something that we could use for infrastructure and development of infrastructure. And so as I learned more about the issue, I decided that my position needed to change, and I needed to bring about the opportunity for the infrastructure to be aided by the property incremental financing. So I am there to try and find a mechanism that will work, that will be viable, that will be long-term, and that we can have success with it in Colorado Springs, and that we can be proud of what we do. But I think we have to do something that's fundamentally different than what we have done with this project. And I think we need to reach into our community and reach to the voters of this community as a unified group of people, from both the mayor, the county, and the city council, and say, if we do this, let's do it right, and let's do it in a business-like manner, and let's make it a success. And that is where I'm at on this issue, and I think that we can do that. I think that it can be done right, and it can go forward, and it can accomplish good things if we are willing to work together to do that. And so I hope that as we go through this process and we work on this, that however the mayoral situation changes or doesn't change in this city, that we have an opportunity to come together as both the council and the mayor to work with the county commissioners and move the city forward and accomplish good things for the city. So, well, I really appreciate all your coming today and all your testimony on this issue, and I think we're at the place we need to vote. So we will open the machines and we will vote. And this is to postpone this discussion until January. That passes on 8-0 vote.